Hello, this is Drew Neek, and this is my presentation on what I think happened to John O'Keefe, and I will be revealing the secrets of the Karen Read retrial. So, in this presentation, I will discuss the five main theories presented by both the prosecution and the defense in this case. Number one is the dog bite theory. Number two is the hypothermia theory. Number three is the red door theory. Number four is the Karen Read killed John theory. And number five is the snowplow theory. Two of these theories are false, and three of these theories can be proven. I will take you through every theory and tell you whether or not they're true based off of evidence. Number one, the dog bite theory. This theory is absolutely absurd. The defense is saying that the wounds on John below were caused by a dog. There was not a speck of dog DNA found on John. Look at those injuries on his body. There was several more injuries that the defense are saying were caused by a dog. There is no way that a dog can do that. And how can you say that the injuries were from a dog if there was no dog DNA found on you? Okay. Number two is the hypothermia theory. The prosecution made this theory to basically just make a point that John was laying out there for a very, very long time, and the evidence doesn't point towards this at all. This theory is also false because there was little to no frostbite found on John. If he did die of hypothermia, they would know for a fact that he did. Hypothermia is very serious, and this is just frostbitten skin, which isn't even close to hypothermia. So if he died of hypothermia, imagine that image, but times like way, way, way worse. It would have looked way worse on him if he would have died of hypothermia. So yes, they would have known for a fact if he died of hypothermia. Instead of just saying, oh, well, he might have, there was little to no frostbite found on him. How about let's just rule out that, because if you die of hypothermia, you will have frostbite on you. Number three is the red door theory. John O'Keefe's phone data below showed that he took 36 steps towards and away from the home. No witnesses said they ever saw John. The prosecutors have failed to mention that a hidden red door off to the side of the house that leads to the garage is exactly 36 steps away from the driveway. If he went into the garage, no one in the house would have seen him come in. There was a granny-like substance found on one of John's head injuries, consistent with falling on concrete. The only two ways that the grainy substance on the back of his head injury would have been there is A, if he fell on the driveway, which is impossible because it was covered in snow because there was a snow blizzard that night. The only other possibility is he walked into that door and he was very, very drunk, which is proven, and he fell on one of those steps and hit it. That injury on the back of his head that had the grainy substance also was like horizontal, consistent with like a staircase. Number four is the Karen killed John theory. The prosecution has proven that Karen hit John O'Keefe. They have done this by showing evidence, like the broken taillight shards found around his body and his coat fibers found on Karen's car, but they have failed to prove that she killed him. Backing up into someone while you were in a blackout, if you don't know what a blackout is, it's when you're in a state of drunkenness where you're like conscious, but you don't know what's going on. And the alcohol levels that were found in Karen's system, she would have definitely been in a blackout. But they have failed to prove that she killed him. Backing up into someone while you were in a blackout, going 15 miles per hour, causing them to fly into a pile of snow, kill them. Nice try, prosecution. She could have knocked him out, but you have proven that the injuries from that killed him. Yeah. Number 5, the snowplow theory. I am fully convinced that the snowplow killed John. The snowplow driver admitted to knocking down a basketball goal on that same road that night. So if you managed to hit a tall basketball goal, how could you manage to miss a body covered in snow on the side of the road? Also, John's injuries on his arm that the defense is saying came from a dog are very consistent with the snowplow. That isn't the image below of John O'Keefe's leg. Those are minor compared to the injuries found on his arm. The injuries on his arm were way worse. Also, there were injuries on his forehead and like head injuries that were consistent with being hit by something when you are laid down. This isn't an easy case because it isn't like a wife killed her husband in their house and they found a gunshot wound to his head. This is very, very, very difficult case. Here's my theory. My theory is that John and Karen, it is proven by surveillance footage at the Waterfall bar, they got very, very drunk and they came home to a party at the police officer's house. I think that Karen went in, but quickly decided to leave. Meanwhile, John walks from the driveway into that red door, and he was so drunk that he fell down those steps, and hit his head on one of those stairs. And he was hurt, he was confused, he didn't know what was going on, so he went out to get help because he sees Karen through the window leaving. So he goes out there to get help, and Karen has no clue where he is because she's very, very drunk. And she hits him without knowing that she hit him, and that knocks him out on the side of the road. Because I don't know how backing up into somebody going 15 miles per hour can kill them. I don't know how that can be possible. And not to mention, he flew into a pile of snow. Anyways, and then I think a short time later, the snowplow came through and John was covered in snow and the snowplow driver hit him. Because it's almost impossible to say that the snowplow driver did not hit John. If the snowplow driver manages to hit a basketball goal in a driveway that is very, very tall, how could you manage to miss a body laying out on the side of the road covered in snow? And the snowplow pretty much takes up the whole street, and that wasn't a very big, wide street. So, yeah. And also, I don't think that if the snowplow driver knew that he could have possibly hit him, I have a feeling, okay, let me reword this. I have a feeling that the snowplow driver knows that he could have accidentally hit John and killed him, but like, who would admit to that, right? I think that Karen is just as guilty as the snowplow driver. And here's the last question. What do I think Karen should be found guilty of? I think if she's found guilty of anything, it should be leaving the scene of an accident. Also, there's one more point that I need to put out there. The owner of the home, who was a police officer, did not once go out to see why the police were stopped in his front yard. He did not once go out to check up on his friend who was laying dead as the ambulance came and picked him up. That just doesn't make sense to me. I think that something bad was going on in that house, but I don't think that anyone in that house had anything to do with John coming in. And also, every single witness that was in the house said that they never saw John. Well, how would you see John if he came through a garage door and you're in a home? Anyways, so I just wanted to make this video to point out a few points, and yeah, let me know in the comments what you think happened to John.